This is so terrifying. Welcome back to Nightmare Narratives, where you send me your spine-tingling ghost stories. Today's story was sent in by Diana, so this is the second one that she has sent in, and this one is scary. So let's jump into it. I went to visit my daughter and her husband in their new home, but from the moment I stepped inside, the house felt off. My daughter moved in, she found strange items tucked away in a cabinet in the kitchen. Odd things that didn't seem to belong. She told me about the old man who lived in the house before them. A man who had passed away. No one was sure if he'd passed in the house or not, but that didn't really seem to matter. From the moment those objects were moved, strange things began to happen. I suggested that they put the items back, thinking it might bring some peace, but I'm not sure if they ever did. One evening, my daughter and her husband went out, leaving me alone in the house. I decided to relax on their sectional, stretching out my legs in front of me on the ottoman. As I began to drift off, something pushed the ottoman hard. It slid out from under my legs, leaving me stunned. It wasn't a gentle nudge or the result of shifting weight. It was forceful and deliberate. On another night, while they had friends over, I sat quietly in a chair in the corner of the room. The conversation and laughter filled the house, but I couldn't focus on it. I kept feeling something brushing through my hair. Soft, deliberate touches that made my skin crawl. Then came the whispers, faint and unsettling, right in my ear. I couldn't make out the words, but they were there. Later that night, I went to bed, determined to sleep and forget about the strange events. As I started to drift off to sleep, I suddenly felt a pressure on my arms, as if someone was pinning me to the bed. Then came the sound, an overwhelming noise in my head, like static mixed with whispers. I couldn't move, and I knew in that moment it was him, the old man. I struggled to break free, but I was trapped. Finally, with one desperate effort, I managed to jerk myself free. I bolted upright, heart pounding, and yelled into the darkness, "Leave me the fuck alone. You are not welcome in this room. I'm leaving in the morning and you will not bother me again." I turned on the bathroom light and left it on for the rest of the night. He didn't come back. But he wasn't done with my daughter. The old man stayed in that house, tormenting her until the day that she moved out. Luckily, when she left, he didn't follow. Whatever tied him to that place kept him there, but to this day, I still wonder if those strange objects in the cabinet had been some kind of anchor, something he couldn't let go of. One thing's for sure, his spirit isn't resting, and neither is that house. Oh my gosh, that's so creepy. Can you imagine something that you cannot see holding you down to the point where like you literally can't move? That is so terrifying. And it obviously sounds like maybe he was connected to those objects in some type of way, but also it's almost as if he was pretty much like, this is still my house and you guys need to leave. That's what I got from it. Diana did say that she has a lot of other stories, so of course, Diana, you can send them to me. I would love to hear them. Remember, if you have a ghost story that you would like to send in, you can send it to the email that is linked in my bio. It's a little bit different than it used to be, but you should see it. It'll say like, send me your ghost stories. You just click it and you'll be able to email it that way. My question for you guys is,
do something with it.
It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and all day. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me.
Hey y'all, welcome back to All Things Jenny. I'm Jenny and welcome to another episode of Spooky Stories. I don't want to say Spooky Sundays because this video might not be playing on a Sunday, but if it is, happy Spooky Sunday to you. But if not, just enjoy the spooky stories, and I have a few for you.
The story I'm about to tell y'all has literally scared me for my entire life. When my cousin was 3 years old, she used to have these imaginary friends. Which is cute and sweet, right? Right, except for she said they would come up out of the floor and that they were not alive. So the story kind of begins before my aunt had my cousin. My aunt was living in my granny's basement with her husband. One day they're just sitting there watching TV and they hear this sound that almost sounds like a cat getting sick. There was a cat that usually sat in their window meowing, so they kind of just dismissed the sound until it happened again. My aunt was like, "That's not a cat," and the sound started getting closer to them and they finally realized that it was like a little girl laughing. Never saw her, but they could hear a little girl giggling and she ran past them, It sounded like she ran past them and into the bedroom, which obviously scared my aunt. She said that it made all the hair on her arms stand up. This isn't the only story with this little ghost girl. Like, honestly, there's so many stories from different people in my family that have encountered her. There's a really old story of my great-great aunt seeing a little dark-headed girl in her bedroom whenever that room was her room. Fast forward a few years and my aunt and her husband have moved into their own home, but it's on the same land. If you don't know, we do live in the Appalachian Mountains. My aunt said that my cousin was always playing with what she assumed was just her imaginary friends until one day my cousin came running to her. My aunt asked her what was wrong and she told her it was the little girls in her bedroom. My aunt asked her, where are they? And my cousin told her they come up out of the floor and they're not alive. My cousin was really smart for a 3-year-old. She was already talking a lot, so my aunt just asked her some simple questions that were simple enough for a 3-year-old to understand. She asked her if she knew how this little girl had passed away. She said the little girl told her that she had plunged back into the river and the ice had frozen over her head and that her daddy couldn't find her. Kentucky River is on the mountain, really close to our family property. And those were the exact words from a 3-year-old. She wouldn't talk about the other little girl except to say that when she came up out of the floor, her skin fell off. What? My aunt told her not to talk to that girl. She says she'd never forget that day. I remember another time when my mom, dad, and aunt and uncle were all sitting together and they all heard a little girl saying, "Daddy." I don't know if this is connected, but I used to have this reoccurring dream about the same cousin. She would be in her backyard, mourning over this grave, which as far as we know, there's no grave there. My aunt has built her new house there now, over where I used to see my cousin mourning over this grave in my dream. Under my aunt's house are fingers growing up out of the ground. The mushrooms that look like fingers, I'll try to insert a photo here, but I don't know if any of that's connected. It's gotta be, right? Can't wait to hear what y'all think about this in the comments. It has always scared me. If you have a scary story, send it to my email, which is linked in my bio, and as always, I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Love y'all.
I think your niece might need to see someone. Because even at my big age, if I were to see a little girl coming from the floor and her skin falling off in front of me, I wouldn't be able to know how to cope. I wouldn't be able to deal with this. How is this child dealing with this? And why weren't you guys asking her ma'am, are you sure it wasn't her coat? Because what? What do you mean her skin fell off? That actually took me by surprise. I was like, what do you mean her skin fell off? Now that's crazy. I get it because yes, they are not but her skin falling off is crazy. And for her to see that, and I'm glad you guys said don't talk to that one again because she seemed like trouble. What do you mean, ma'am? And I hope, they're resting in peace. And when she said about the cemetery being behind her house, let me explain to you what.
So this scary story was also submitted by the same person who shared the previous one. And yes, she also caught a picture of this one. So when Ashton's son was only a couple months old, she started to live in an old stable that had been converted into a home. The property was extremely old. One day, Ashton was sitting at home nursing her son when she went to lay him down. Her son was completely passed out, almost like when babies drink so much milk they get milk drunk, and he was out of it. As she stepped into his bedroom, her son woke up almost like he had been startled and started screaming as if someone had hurt him. Ashton decided to go out into the hallway and walk back and forth trying to calm him down. The minute she walked out of his bedroom, he calmed down. Goes to enter his bedroom again, and once again he wakes up screaming. It is then when Ashton noticed what was on the wall and her heart completely sank. She quickly took a photo of it and ran out of there and waited in her bedroom until her baby's dad got home. When her baby's dad got home, she showed him the photo and he also freaked out. Now here's the photo. This is what she saw on the wall of her baby's nursery. This is a closer look. It even looks like it has something on its forehead. Whatever it is does not look nice. They tried to debunk it to see if maybe it was some type of reflection or light that was casting off of something, but they could never figure out where this came from. As time went on, they realized that the place was extremely haunted. They later found out that someone had actually unalived themselves by hanging off the staircase. Sometimes they would be laying in bed and they could hear full-on conversations going on downstairs. Even though they couldn't make out the words, they knew that people were downstairs having a discussion, but when they would go down to investigate, there would be nothing there. Stuff would move, you always felt like you were being watched. Regardless, it was a very interesting place. Even though they staged the home, the activity continued.
So imagine getting pricked with a sharp item and all of a sudden you went to the hospital and you've never been the same again. And also, let me know if in your country they tell you not to stare into elderly people's eyes because it's considered rude if not disrespectful. And also, do you guys also know about whether or not if someone call your name, you should not answer unless you see that person calling your name? Let me know in the comment section and listen to that story because it gets really good.
Do you even know that you can be poked with something, like pricked with something, and then get possessed after? Scary story time. So there's this girl, and she's from Kenya. When you're in Kenya as a kid, you know that you can see things like cannibals, spirits, and witches and stuff, like the usual. They are basically taught the same thing that I told you guys I was taught growing up in Haiti. Like, don't answer to your name being called. Do not open the door if no one's outside the door. Anyways, when she was younger, she used to go visit her hometown with her mom, her grandma, and her siblings. And it was always so beautiful, and she always had so much fun. And often her mom would leave her with her grandma so she can go catch up with some of her people. Their family owned a house with like tons of land and like tons of people that lives nearby. So their grandma used to always let them play in the field. And she's 7 at this time. And as they were playing on the field, there was always this old woman just staring at them, looking very much angry. And so one day they were playing in the fields, and there she was, staring at them, looking angry. And her being a 7-year-old, she smiled and waved at the old lady. And when she did that, it's like she made that lady even angrier, like real angry, to the point where she tossed something into the field. Now, thank God that Grandma noticed that. And Grandma immediately told them, don't go over there and don't touch that. Stay away from it. But y'all know what they did? They went over there anyway. When they got over there, they noticed that the thing that she tossed was a really big bone. And she said it was the biggest bone she'd ever seen before, almost like a leg. So they just assumed that it was like an animal and they walked away from it. Anyway, the next day they went to the supermarket with their grandma.
I don't know about y'all, but the scary stories involving kids are always the creepiest to me. Since I had to read this one before bed, y'all have to hear it too. So Stephanie has 2 kids. They're now 17 and 14 years old. But back when they were 2 and 4 years old, they started seeing something and talking to something that they called the boy. Let's back it up a bit. There was one day when Stephanie remembers being home alone with her 2 kids, and at the time they were like 2.5 years old and 6 months old. The 2-year-old was napping, so Stephanie decided she was going to go take a shower, and she put the 6-month-old in like a bouncer seat in the bathroom with her. So outside her bathroom door, she had a small like miniature chest. There was a glass candle sitting on top of it, and it was just filled with pictures. When she got out of the shower and went to leave the bathroom, she noticed that the chest was flipped over sideways and the candle was shattered. Again, the 2-year-old was sleeping, and the baby was with her. Her husband was at work, and she did have an older child, but they were at school. She was freaked out, but she never really figured out that mystery. She just cleaned up the mess and moved on with her life. Fast forward, and the 6-month-old baby is now 2 years old, and the 2-year-old is now 4. The 4-year-old started telling Stephanie stories about the boy that was in her baby brother's bedroom, saying, "The boy just wants to play, the boy told me to dump out the toys, The boy told me to draw on the wall, stuff like that. He was a 4-year-old and he had a very vivid imagination, so they just chalked it up to that. But as the youngest one started being able to talk more, he also started being afraid to sleep in his room, saying things like, the boy won't leave me alone, the boy wants to play. I don't guess he started sleeping through the night until kindergarten, which I know isn't like super uncommon, but still. So fast forward again to when the kids are 3 and 5. We're in the living room playing with toys, watching TV, while Stephanie made some dinner in the kitchen right next to them. She could hear her daughter making the Barbies be mean to each other, and she was making her Barbies like be mean to the G.I. Joe doll that her son had in his hand. So Stephanie peeked around the corner and was like, hey now, let's not be mean to each other, you know, we need to be nice. She said what happened next was like out of a movie scene. Her daughter was sitting in the living room with her back turned towards her. She slowly turned just her head around to look at Stephanie, and she said in like a low growl voice, I'm just doing what the boy wants us to do. He's the boss of this house. Stephanie said this was the most vivid memory that she had of them with the boy, and it really freaked her out. They moved out not long after that. Her children still bring up the boy when telling their own ghost stories. And just as a side note, there was some like crayon drawings in the youngest son's bedroom closet when they bought the house. They're all convinced that maybe this was his room. I cannot wait to hear what y'all think about this story in the comments. And yes, I read all the comments. If you have a scary story you'd like to send me, you can send it to my email, which is linked in my bio. As always, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.
Now, in my opinion, children's are already creepy as is, but imagine you're a child saying that, oh, I'm only doing this because the little boy says to. Who is the little boy? And I'm gonna need you and that little boy to move out of my house right now, because who is he? He's not paying any rent.